All right, we are live, and I'm gonna first start off by saying, hope everyone is being safe in these crazy times that we're living. And secondly, just make sure to give you guys some time joining. Today's topic is going to be talking about the top 3 pony cars, the top trim level pony cars for both Chevrolet, Ford, and Dodge, and just kind of talk about the pros of each, what features each of them have, and kind of where I personally, just my opinion, think they should all be kind of ranked based on their specs and performance. And then hopefully we can have a discussion on whether you guys agree or don't agree with some of my thoughts on these cars. But I'm going to go ahead and give it a few minutes and let people kind of come in. And so if you want to kind of skip forward a little bit, we won't really be talking about the main topic until about 2 or 3 minutes in. All right, gonna give this a few more minutes, and then I'll go start talking about the 3 different cars. As you guys are joining, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, and also go ahead and say hi so I can know who's in the chat, and we can get right to it. So again, hope everybody is staying safe, and this little 30 to 45 minute session will hopefully get us to think about something else besides just virus. All right, so we've got about what's going on Camaro, what's going on ZL1. Hope everyone's doing all right. And today, let's go ahead and just get right to it. We're going to be talking about the 3 top spec pony cars of every manufacturer. Talk about some of the things, some of the specs, and where I think they all line up and where one might be better than the other. So let's go ahead and get all the specs out of the way first. So we'll start off, of course, with the ZL1, which is, of course, the big brother to my Camaro SS. And the ZL1's been out since 2017, and it was the first car to get the new 10-speed auto. We then had the Mustangs get 10-speed, and then eventually the 2019 Camaro SSs get a 10-speed. But in terms of the performance cars, it was the very first one to get the 10-speed auto. And when it came out, it was one of the best cars that you could get from any of the 3. So it came out in 2017. It had 650 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque coming out of that LT4, which was the same engine that was found in the Corvette Z06. And bone stock, it was running in the mid 11 seconds, quarter miles. And so it was a really strong car. It was also the one to bring in the 2nd generation of magnetic ride control, which meant that it handled really well on the track. And so it was the first generation of all-around performance from drag strip to track racing. And that car was really great. It was really well balanced, and it had good straight line speed, instant torque, all out of a very small blower. Then we had the Challenger, which has had some iterations of the top trim, but we're going to look at the most highest trim, which is the Redeye. And the Redeye came out in 2019, and that was basically getting the Demon engine and stuffing it in a regular Challenger so they could sell more of those Demon engines. It was just Dodge's way of being able to sell more of those engines without affecting the limited and exclusivity of the Dodge Demon. So they gave you the Dodge Demon engine with a different hood, which reduced the horsepower output from 804 to 797. And that at that point was like, oh my God, really big horsepower numbers out of the Challenger Redeye, and you could finally get it with the wide body package that allowed you to fit wider wheels, which we all know those cars had a lot of difficulty putting the power down. So the wide body package was a very much welcome addition in 2019. And those cars were out there running low 11s on the factory tires and with some good drag radials, easily in the 10s as they sat. Really, really great drag car, but was not so great when it came to the track. So that was more straight line focus speed, and it was a lot heavier, and by far the heaviest one of the three that we're going to be looking at. I believe that one would come in about 4,500 pounds, give or take. The Camaro ZL1 was on the 3,900 pound range, 3,900 pounds. So it was a lot lighter. So head to head, they were pretty decently matched, I would say, even though it didn't look like it from the horsepower perspective. And then finally, you had the GT500, which came out in 2020 as a 2020 model. And the GT500 was the last of the three top tier specs to get that, supercharged version. And that one came at 760 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque, and it was using a 5.5 liter version of the GT350 engine without the flat plane crank, and using a big 2650 blower, the same size as the Challenger Hellcat Redeye. So you've started off, and that car had the 7-speed dual clutch transmission, which was the first of any more affordable type car, supercar to get it, I guess, or pony car to get it. And it's really, really quick transmission. It came with a bunch of drag modes and all kinds of stuff. And those cars, bone stock, were running in the high 10s due to the launch control features and all of that out of that transmission, which was really, really good. And it also both had the suspension set up to be able to run well around the track. So those were the three top tiered cars, right? And in terms of pricing, you had the ZL1, which started at about $63,000. And with a couple little options, you could find it for $65,000 all day long, and even a brand new one. Then you had the Hellcat Redeye Challenger, and that Challenger in a non-wide body version started at $74,000, I believe, around in the mid 70,000s. And then if you opted for the wide body package, which I believe everyone should get with the Challenger Redeye version, because you need the extra space to put wider tires for better grip if you're trying to launch that car. And that package sets you back $7,000. So you were looking at a low $80,000 range for a Hellcat Redeye wide body. So that was pretty high. And then the GT500 came in somewhere in the middle, in around the $70K range for the base model. So for the money and the overall pricing, the GT500 came in at a good pricing point, I think. Unfortunately, because of its high demand and low product availability, dealers were marking this shit up like crazy. Stang mode, I believe now. And obviously, admittedly, he says that he's putting at a very high price because he really doesn't want to sell it. But if someone gives him that kind of money, then it's worth it. But he put his up for sale for $100,000. A lot of dealers are asking for $20,000, $30,000 over sticker. So you cannot really find a Mustang GT500 for under about $90K, even though it's got a sticker price of $70 for the base model. So let's just put, for the sake of comparing, we're gonna have to put the GT500 right now at the $90 to $100K range. So that's the most expensive level. So if we're just looking at purely price and the value that you get for the price, you cannot beat the ZL1, guys. And just as much as I don't want to sound like a Camaro fanboy here, but the ZL1 is the cheapest of all three. It might have the least amount of power, but with a few little mods, you can get it to run just as fast as some of the other two, the Challenger and the Mustang. And it's also got really well balanced race car to run around the track. So if you're looking at strictly just like the base models, the GT500, the ZL1, and the Hellcat Redeye, you've got to give it hands down for the ZL1. Now, Aside from that, we got a couple different variants of two of these cars. One of them being the ZL1 1LE, which was the pure track-focused version of the ZL1, which got rid of the magnetic ride control for these really, really F1 inspired dampers that are like, I forget what they're called, what the technology is called, but it's a really crazy trick suspension that's perfect for the track, and it's specifically for the track. And between 2018 and 2020, they came in only a 6-speed manual. And actually 2020, I believe, was the first year where they offered a 10-speed also for the 1LE. And that thing was a monster. And you could get this package for, I believe it was 11,000 or 7,000 or 11,000, one of those two. But needless to say, you could get a ZL1 1LE fully track dedicated package car for about the low 70s, $73,000. The GT500 also had a track package, which was more along the lines of almost $20,000, which brought in more tuned suspension, carbon fiber wheels, a higher spoiler wing similar to the ZL1 1LE. And that GT500 was dedicated purely to the track, but with a much, much higher price tag. And it's supposed to be really great around the track. I haven't really seen many comparisons, but that car with that added package was looking at minimum MSRP of in the $90,000 range, not including the markup, which some dealers are asking $30,000, $40,000 over, so $150,000 for this car. So basically, for the price of two ZL1 1LEs, is you could buy a GT500 track pack car. Now it's very limited and all that, but you know it is what it's not worth $150,000, and it's been tested. Some YouTuber reviewers did the test back to back between both of those and found the ZL1 1LE to be just as good, if not better, in certain situations than the GT500. It had the manual, which a lot of people want for track racing, while the GT500 is only dual clutch, so you've got that to deal with. But it was just too high of a price tag. And of course, our Challenger does not have a track variant of it. I guess the wide body would have been that a little bit better, but it definitely isn't track related whatsoever. So when it comes to purely track focus and use for the track guys, again, I have to hand that down to the ZL1 1LE, because it'll give you, for I would say 80% of us that drive the car that would be able to push that car to the limits, the ZL1 1LE is more than enough car for you to go have fun out at a racetrack. The GT500 is probably just as good, maybe it's slightly better, but at that astronomical price, not worth the money. So for someone that wants to road course their cars, the ZL1 1LE is definitely the car for you. Now, when it comes to drag racing, that's where things get a little more interesting. When it comes to drag racing, this is the one spot where the Dodge Challenger Hellcat Redeye really can kind of shine somewhat, and that is because it doesn't take too much money to get those cars running really, really fast. They're already potent, very, very high horsepower car, and with the right amount of suspension mods and right tires, you can get those cars to run very, very quick for not that much money, and even without having to modify too much of the car. The GT500 runs great and similar, but it doesn't. It's very new technology, and there's still a lot of limitations with being able to modify the car. Cars are out there running in the high nines, similar to the Hellcat Redeye, but the Redeye has a bigger, I guess, aftermarket market for them that allows them to get all the parts required, and it's a proven system. They know what's going to fail, so you can upgrade that before you have any issues, whereas the GT500 is untested. So at this point in time, when you're going to the drag strip, I've got to give that to the Redeye. Now, the ZL1 also is very, very competitive at the track, and with certain mods, it'll run really, really well. But to get it to run nines, it does take quite a bit of money and a lot of invasive work between, fueling and upgraded probably intakes and bolt-ons and things like that. Whereas the Hellcat Redeye just requires maybe some injectors, a pulley swap, and a tune to get really, really good, faster numbers. So I've got to give that to the Hellcat Redeye, even though it's a little bit more expensive, it does what it's got to do. So that is my kind of thoughts on these cars, guys. Let me know in the comments, do you guys agree, do you guys not? I think there's definitely a market for each and every one of them. You know, you're going to have your fanboys that love one brand over another. If I could, I would have one of each, just like I believe Woman Driven. It has, doesn't have the GT500, but has a GT350, a ZL1 1LE, and a Hellcat Redeye. So, and she bought the Hellcat Redeye because of she wants to go drag racing. She has a ZL1 1LE for the track, and of course a GT350 for the track. So definitely, those are my thoughts. I think if the GT500 could be had at MSRP, then a base GT500 is a really good deal at $70,000, and even better once they start depreciating and you can find them for the $60,000, $50,000 range, you know, 3-4 years down the line. We're living in an age where, you know, 5 years down the line, guys, you're going to be able to buy a 650 horsepower supercharged ZL1 Camaro in the $40,000 range. That's crazy. Low 40,000s. I mean, I think you can even have, there's some for sale now, like manuals that are in the mid 45,000. So just insane the things that you're going to be able to buy in 5 years that with that much power. Hellcat Redeyes are probably going to be 60 to 50,000. So I'm excited. It's a really nice time to kind of wait and sit back and see these cars price drop because it's going to be fun. So let's get to some of these comments here. Camaro LT1 says, the Camaro might be the least powerful of the three, but it has the best looks and interior, in my opinion. The Camaro looks really great. I love the aggressive front end, and I love the interior design on it. It's pretty futuristic. It's new. It's not everything else. The GT500 still has the old style. Besides having the digital dash, everything else looks very outdated back from like the old 2014, 2013 years. And the Challenger obviously hasn't changed since like 2010 or something like that. So I agree with you there on that one. And you're right about that. The GT350, guys, is a track car designed for the track. Now there's people that are doing, you know, twin turbo builds or trying to get really high horsepower GT350s out there. And I mean, if you have that, then definitely you can run it at the drag strip and get some good times, but you're going to have a much better time just running it around a racetrack. That's what they're really specifically designed for. Similar to like the ZL1 1LE. You don't take a ZL1 1LE to the drag strip. If that's what you wanted to do, you should have just gotten a regular ZL1 with launch control and all that stuff. Camaro LT1 also says the 2020 GT500 with the 2015 front end for all that money. Yeah, they didn't even update the headlights on it. That goes to show just how long they had been working on this GT500. And I think, honestly, they should have came out with this GT500 2 years ago in 2018 before they came out with the Hellcat Redeye. That would have given it a little better selling point and people would have been more willing to buy that car. I think it would have gotten more hype than what it really did because after the launch, I didn't really hear anything back about it for months. I mean, and even now, you don't really see them on YouTube. There's maybe a handful of people that have them. Most of them are shops. So it's interesting that like for as much hype as they had when they released it, like a month later, Dodge announced the Hellcat Redeye, and everyone forgot about the GT500. So actually, no, sorry, I get that back. When they released the GT500, like a month later, they released the Corvette C8, and everyone forgot about the GT500. And then Camaro says they need to go all out with the ZL1 and put the LT5. An LT5 on ZL1 would be dope. An LT5 engine at 750 horsepower is insane. That ZR1 is no joke. The ZL1 would be really nice. They're never going to do it though. I believe there's a company called Crawford Racing, and they actually offer the LT5 blower swap for your ZL1 if you have one for quite a bit of penny. Because the LT5 uses both direct injection and actually port injection as well. You have to have like an extra standalone fuel controller, but they sell you the full bolt-on kit for it, and it's the LT5 blower with the standalone fuel system, the wide bands, all that. So that'd be pretty cool. And you also mentioned that you would love to hear a cammed Redeye. That would sound pretty dope. I think I've heard maybe 1 or 2 of those out in YouTube, and that I'm sure they sound pretty good. Not too many. It's very expensive to cam a Hemi car, and these Redeyes are out here running really damn good times with just those, demon engine blocks and just extra boost that most people don't even really feel the need to do that. They just go ahead and add the bolt-ons and go run 9s. That's how awesome that Hellcat Redeye is when it comes to racing it. I think once they do all the diff racing, the drag wheels and all that, it's just a whole nother way faster to go that route than to do anything else. They can make it a special ZL1 with LT5 called ZL1R. Again, that would be really nice. And who knows? I mean, GM might come out with something else differently, but I think for now we're probably stuck with what we've got now. Like I said, people are doing in the aftermarket, putting the aftermarket Magnuson 2650 blower on the LT1s and basically having the LT5 blower on the engine. So they're good with that. What's going on, Law? And no worries, man. We're just talking about the 3 different cars and just how different they are and which ones I would pick for what situation. Long story short, if you want a road course car, get the ZL1 1LE. If you want a drag strip car, the Hellcat Challenger Redeye wide body. And if you want a overall value car of all 3, the ZL1 is my pick for both road course and drag strip, both combinations. The GT500 is a great car, but it's just way too expensive with those MSRP prices. And the road course wise, the track version of it is way too expensive. The ZL1 1LE can do most, if not everything, that an amateur or someone with decent skills or 80% of the world would be able to get out of a car. So those are my short thoughts on that. What's going to happen with the Camaro after 2023? That is a good question, and nobody really knows right now. I believe there isn't any plans to actually make a new generation. Now, Camaro's gone through this before, back in 2002 when they stopped producing them from the 4th gen to the 5th gen. We didn't see another Camaro for almost, 8 years? So they came back in 2010. So the way GM is, I can see them maybe not stopping production in 2023, and then taking their time and working on possibly the electrified version, hybrid versions, but giving themselves a year or 2 to really dial that in and perfect that before they release it to the world. So honestly, I could see us not having a new Camaro for sale from 2023 or in 2024 for like a year. And then maybe for 2025, you'll see the next generation of the classic muscle pony car, which is going to be some form of electric and hybrid, or electric with engine with gas powered. But I think they're probably still working on it, and they don't want to be rushing things right now because this is going to be a real critical point for the manufacturers, guys. Making the transition to electric properly is going to be a very, very critical turning point for these manufacturers. The manufacturer that can get it right on the first swing is going to have a leg up on everybody else. And I think that's what GM is doing. They don't want to rush something. They want to make sure everything's going to be just right to when they release this stuff. So definitely I can see them putting that on hiatus in 2024. And what you'll see is the C8 will kind of take over that area or that demand. At the price point that they put the C8 at, you're going to see that, they won't really miss much of the Camaro sales while they have a C8 selling. So you've got the C8 in 2020, you'll have the Z06 in 2022, late 2021 availability. So next year, at the end of next year, you'll start seeing some Z06s out. And so through 2022, then you have 2022. And in 2023, they'll come out with probably the ZR1 or keep the Z06 in, or actually in 2023, they'll come out with the Grand Sport version, which will basically be the Z06 body with the LT2 engine that's in the C8 in 2023. And then you'll have a stint of 2024 where nothing comes out and you just have C8 base, a C8 Grand Sport, and the Z06 for sale. And then in 2025, you'll get the Camaro back with the electric motors and the hybrid assist and a V8 and some hybrid assist in it with a new platform, which will kind of be the hinting of the new ZR1, which will come out in 2026. That's what I think you'll see. You'll start seeing the hints of what the electric platform is going to do to the ZR1. And there's already people saying the ZR1 is going to have 1,000 horsepower with a twin turbo 5.5 liter V8 making about 700 to 750 horsepower, and then another 250 horsepower of electric motors. What I think you're going to see is the Camaro coming out with a new gen, almost I guess LT2 style engine, making about 450 horsepower, similar to what they're making now, but with the add-on of 2 electric motors in the front for like an all-wheel drive version, which will give a smaller horsepower jump. So you're looking at probably maybe 100 horsepower extra out of these motors and have a 550 horsepower Camaro for sale. And that'll be kind of slotted in between that. And then the ZL1, maybe you'll get the bigger motors for the bigger, higher horsepower levels with a supercharged engine, while the base models will get the smaller engines like 6-cylinder, 4-cylinder with those 100 horsepower motors making 400, 500 horsepower out of smaller engines. So that's what I think you're going to see timeline-wise from GM. And don't know if I'm right. I mean, that's just my thoughts, but we'll see. Do you think they'll produce a mid-engine Camaro? No, ZL1, I do not think they will produce a mid-engine Camaro. It's, even though they were able to get the cost down on the C8 Corvette to $60,000, I just don't see a way that they can do that for a Camaro to be under, to get the price point down to the $40,000 range is going to be pretty hard, because you're still using the same engine and it just doesn't make sense. The size of the car is already kind of limited. If you make it smaller, you're basically going to have to remove the trunk area in the back. And so you can kind of shorten it a little bit, and it just wouldn't look right. I don't think so. You're not going to see a mid-engine Camaro. Looks like you will never see a mid-engine Mustang or a mid-engine Challenger. Flying Tarpoon says, I just would hate to see it go away again. Such a great car. Yeah, man. Unfortunately it is, but I think unlike last time, I think this time it's only going to go away for a little bit, maybe a year, 2 years at most. So don't worry about it being away for more than 2 years, especially if gas prices stay somewhat low. So I think again, like I mentioned, you're going to have C8 2020, Z06 in 2020, at the end of 2021 as a 2022 model. You're going to have a Grand Sport, basically Z06 body with an LT1 engine with a base engine coming out at the end of 2022 as a 2023 model. And then you'll have 2024 be that kind of dead gap where they're trying to get everything together. And then for 2025, they'll announce the new 2025 Camaro. And then in 2026 or 2025, 2026, you'll either see the Camaro first and then the ZR1, or you see the ZR1 and then the Camaro after. So those are kind of my points on that. And for those of you just joining in, really short recap. If you want an all-around car, both road course and drag racing and roll racing, get yourself a ZL1. That's the best price value, the car that you can get. The base ZL1, not the ZL1 LE. If you want a road course car, go with the ZL1 1LE because it's going to be much, much cheaper, almost half the price of a track pack GT500. And if you want a drag strip car only and you want to go deep in the 10s into the 9s easily without too many modifications, get the Hellcat Challenger Redeye wide body. So those are the three that I would go with. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. You guys are just joining in. What do you think of those three assessments that I've made? And also, we've been talking about, you know, what was going to happen with the cars in the future and where we plan on going. And Flying Tarpon says, I'm just not a fan of electric cars. Yeah, it's a whole new generation. And I mean, Tesla's been proving that they're really great general driving cars to do what you want to do. For when it comes to performance, you can get a lot of performance out of these electric motors. But definitely, I mean, it's at least through my generation and some of my younger, anybody that was born pre, 2005. I think all these people that are still up are gonna keep the engine going, especially with the prices where they're at now. Oil prices are pretty decent, and they're gonna come up again. But I think the combustion engine is still gonna be around till at least 2050. So I don't think we have anything to worry about performance cars going away anytime soon and being only electric. But we are going to start seeing the transition into using hybrid systems where you have the big V8 engine with the motors or smaller downsizing of engines and bigger electric motors to give you the same high horsepower that you're used to seeing from just a purely big, massive V8 engine. I'm just not a fan. I would do an SS one at least. Yeah, so Laud, again, right now this topic is about the top trims of all those cars. Now, if you're just looking for a fun car and are on a budget per se, and you can't quite swing the 50,000 plus of the top trim level cars, then definitely the SS1 Leaf is a really great buy for the track. And I even think now for 2020, the 2021 models are going to be you're going to be able to buy it with a 10-speed automatic, similar to what they did with the ZL1 1LE also. So that's pretty interesting. I know, unfortunately, a lot of people don't drive manual, so that's why they don't get the 1LE. But it's a great package overall for handling for track and drag racing. You got to be pretty excited about putting NOS on your ride. Yeah, man, I'm super excited. Unfortunately, today I didn't even get to actually work on the car because there's actually a missing fitting. I had to get a couple fittings or order a couple fittings that weren't included in my kit for the fuel systems to finish the fuel system setup. So I'm waiting on those. Those come in on Thursday, but tomorrow I do plan on finishing up at least the fuel hoses for the feed and the return, and then start on the wiring. So we'll see how far we get, and then I would love to try to be done with this nitrous install by the end of this weekend, but we'll see. Darian Lopez says, "Do you think we're going to be able to modify electric cars?" Knowing what I know about electric motors and electric systems in general, by modifying, I think what's going to happen is we're going to be able to possibly have a new generation of like tuners, and those are going to be guys that are going to be able to like break into the system and bypass the amount of amps or the current that the controllers are going to allow the batteries to output. Most of these battery systems can output very, very high amounts of current, especially with the higher voltages, but are limited by all the electronics. The electronics are the ones that tell it, hey, only send out this amount of current. And the motors that are used for most of these electric vehicles are motors that can accept a wide range of current. And the best way I can put this in an analogy is fuel pumps and the way that the voltage boosters work. You can buy a voltage booster for a fuel pump and up the voltage to increase the flow of the fuel pump to allow more headroom from your fuel system. That's going to be the similar thing with electric cars. You're going to have the car coming in from the factory, only allowing the car to run 50 amps to the motors, and the motor is going to be running on 50 amps of power running through it, of current running through it, and that's going to be able to spin the motors so fast. Well, someone's going to probably end up making or designing a controller that you're going to be able to do like a piggyback, kind of like a standalone or plug-in into the car. That's going to tell the car, trick the car, similar to the way your those plug-in throttle commanders or pedal commanders are doing, and tricking the voltage to change and this and that. You're going to start seeing that for electric cars, but it's going to trick the system into saying, well, you're only supplying 25 amps, go ahead and up more current or something like that. And that's how you're going to get cars to go faster. And I'm simplifying it quite a bit, but that's kind of how you would work on cars and modify electric cars. Really, you can probably get cooling mods to cool the battery packs and make sure they stay really, really cool. If you super cool batteries, they tend to have higher capacity, higher output, things like that. So instead of getting an inner chiller for your coolant lines to cool the intake temperatures, you're going to be using an inner chiller, some form of inner chiller, to cool your battery pack, super cool your battery pack, to be able to maintain that high performance level, for multiple pet track passes or something like that. Similar to like the Demon chiller or something like that. Law Smith says, for a track car, no overheat issues. Yeah, and the SS1 Elite does really great, but the ZL1 1LE Law actually is an amazing car on the track and has none of the overheating issues that you're talking about. It's because of how wide mouth they made that front end and all the cooling system that they have. Yes, you do suffer some of the heat soak from the supercharger, but you're still going to have a lot more power overall and instant torque than you would from just a standard NA SS1LE, unless you obviously mod it. But they did a really, really good job with the ZL1 1LE in terms of cooling and being able to run long stints with it. All right, well, that was pretty awesome. I enjoyed talking about it. And Darren, you brought up a really cool question about, are we going to be able to modify electric vehicles, and what some of the concerns are of us moving towards this new era of electric compared to combustion engines. So I think you just gave me an idea for tomorrow's topic. Tomorrow we will be talking about combustion engines versus electric motors, and why one is better than the other, and why a lot of us are worried about going from one to the other. I think it'd be a great discussion to have tomorrow, as far as kind of some things that can or cannot happen with cars. So definitely making that the topic for tomorrow. Appreciate the question. What's going on, Ned? How you doing, man? All right, guys. Anybody have any more questions? I'm going to probably give this a few more minutes, and then I'll be checking out and hopefully seeing you guys tomorrow. But I'll stay for a couple minutes to see if anybody else has any other questions. Ned, I'm assuming you're talking about the Nitrous system that I'm installing on my car. I ended up paying $3,500 in all the parts for this Nitrous kit. It was about $1,200 or so on the Nitrous kit itself, with the bigger bottle, the bigger purge solenoid, and then $400 some for the timing controller box. The standalone fuel system was about $1,200. And then the controller for the window switch was another $300 something, and just small little ends and pieces. So it was about $3,500. Still a lot cheaper than a supercharger kit, and I don't have to worry about upgrading my fuel system to the LT4 stuff. So it's expensive, but it's cheaper than going boosted. And also, if you're also thinking about between this and doing heads and cam, it's also quite a bit cheaper than going the heads and cam route. and give you about the same horsepower. Heads and cam build would probably cost you about $5,000 to $6,000, depending on buying all the other supporting mods. And that'll gain you about 120 to 150 horsepower. You can throw 150 shot of nitrous and with my setup, with a $3,500 setup, and make up that same amount of horsepower. So in theory, with the heads and cam setup that I have and the nitrous kit, I should be able to almost double my horsepower. The car put down about 412 horsepower, or 400 horsepower on the dyno bone stock, and with 150 shot, I could very well easily be almost to 700. So I'd be almost doubling the horsepower of the engine at that point. Ned Stang mode, how much can it affect your motor? Well, if I don't set everything up properly and don't use the right stuff, it can blow up your engine. Luckily, that is why the kit was so expensive. That's why the kit was $3,500, because I bought a lot of extra parts that were going to be able to make sure that the nitrous kit was safe, just like basically the timing retard box to pull timing. I decided to spend the extra $1,200, or almost half of the price, on a fuel system, dedicated fuel system, to allow me to run the C16 or race fuel. That's going to help me maintain that fuel right and have the pre-detonation under control when I'm spraying nitrous. Usually with C16, you don't have to pull any timing, even up to 150 shot, because of how good the fuel is and how prone and how good it is against knocking. But I'm still going to use the timing to pull back timing, and you basically set up the car like if I was using just 93 octane and the standalone. So it'll be very, very safe to run, and I might not make the 150 horsepower. It might make a little bit less, but it'll be very, very safe. And then my saying, because I have a 5.0 and everyone's telling me not to get it because it's not good for the engine. Well, I mean, just like boost is also not, like, nothing that doesn't come with a dealership is not good for the engine, besides some basic bolt-ons. Once you go power adders, anything can happen. And even though I'm trying to future-proof and make my system as fail-safe as possible, that doesn't mean that my engine won't go. But by taking all these precautions and adding all these parts to it, I can at least give it a fighting chance to be able to handle and be happy with the extra power that it's making. Anybody else have other questions? And hopefully I had a video out today about my first part of the nitrous installer, which is quite a bit of stuff. I'm working on the second part, which I'm basically going to make 2 days of, because I had to go back and kind of basically rethink my whole trunk setup. So I've got the next video. Hopefully it'll come out by Thursday or Friday, and then the final part 3 will come out sometime Monday, maybe, of next week. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything works well. Have a good one, ZL1 4Play, and hope your car does well, man. How much do you recommend nitro? I really like nitrous. I had it before, but it's really personal preference and what you would want to do. Who would you recommend for an aftermarket long block for the Camaro? Lawsmith. Okay, aftermarket long block. So one of my buddies, I've never gone aftermarket long block in general, but if you're going the long block route, Texas Speed has some decent long blocks. Thompson Motorsports up in Dallas, they actually, it's a smaller company, but they do a really well job, and they warranty their stuff, especially if you get it with all like the cam built in and all that. Really, really great. One of my buddies has a Thompson Motorsports engine on his C6 Vet running nitrous, and that engine is doing great. I think he's gone single turbo now. Other than that, I mean, I don't really know who else you would go for a long block that I've had personal experience with, but I would say those two are pretty good. Next thing, and PSI. So nitrous doesn't add boost. Nitrous is not like a supercharger or turbo that adds boost, which is one of the reasons why I went with it on my Camaros, because I don't want to have the extra pressure, cylinder pressure, from the extra boost and cracking my pistons. And the weather down here in Texas is really nice, man. It is nice, perfect 70 to 80 degrees. It's been really, really nice. And thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. And Flying Tarpon, you have a good one and be safe. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. I hope this was an interesting, and I hope you guys like my topic. If you guys saw the stuff, make sure you comment down below, hit the thumbs up button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll see you. Well, actually, I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, 9 p.m.